Part 39. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 381. Chapter 381 Goo Insect. Xia Ying desperately tried to break free from the entanglement of the group of bugs. However, Xia Ying was sweating profusely, but the bugs clung to her like gummy candies and did not intend to leave her. Xia Ying had never seen such an insect before. Her green eyes seemed to be refracted from the deep and dark hell. When she looked into Xia Ying's eyes, Xia Ying's scalp couldn't help but feel numb. "Child, you are destined to them, and they will not let you go easily." At this time, a desolate but rich voice sounded, and Xia Ying heard it and ran away. An old grandfather walked towards Xia Ying with a cane. The grandfather was wearing a black robe and a black pointed hat, covering his face, leaving only two pairs of weathered eyes. The old man's crutch is made of brown sandalwood, with the shape of a poisonous snake winding on the surface. The snake's head is exactly the top of the cane, where the old man's hand is placed. "Are you the shop owner?" Xia Ying's voice was trembling. She always felt that the room suddenly became weird. In the empty storefront, only a few bookshelves are noticeable. A group of inexplicable little bugs, and a strange old man. "Yes." The old man nodded, looked down, landed on Xia Ying's ankle, and said, "They like you very much." "Those bugs like her?" Xia Ying always felt that there was a sentence that was a bit creepy. These insects were like creatures that appeared in supernatural thriller movies. According to the old man, do these bugs still have their own thoughts? "Grandpa, can you help me get rid of them?" The old man shook his head. "I can't do it." "Ah." Xia Ying sighed in disappointment. How could she not do it? Didn't he raise these insects? Judging from his tone, it was obvious that he was. Moreover, if he couldn't do it, was he planning to keep these little bugs clinging to her? "Child, I told you that you are destined to them. They have recognized you as its owner, so you might as well accept them," Grandpa said meaningfully. Xia Ying was even more puzzled. Did she collect those insects? When can insects be kept as pets? Moreover, they were still such strange bugs. If they were brought home, they would stare at her like ghosts at night. How could she sleep? "Grandpa, please stop joking." Xia Ying smiled bitterly. The old man smiled faintly and said, "Child, do you know what kind of insect this is?" "Have no idea." "Have never seen it, how could she know?" "They are a rare kind of goo insect and are almost extinct," the old man said with emotion. Goo insect. Xia Ying was a little surprised. She knew what a goo insect was. It's just that he always thought that it was just a creature that appeared in folklore, but he never thought that there really were so-called goo insects in this world. Once they identify their master, they will not change it and will remain loyal to their master until death. Xia Ying opened her eyes and said, "What do you mean, I have to collect this insect even if I don't?" "Exactly." Grandpa nodded. Xia Ying raised her eyebrows helplessly. Why did she encounter such a thing? Why are these little goo bugs so stubborn that they refuse to leave? "Child, the reason why this kind of goo is precious is that it is not controlled by spells and is only loyal to its owner. Moreover, even though they are small, they are very powerful," Grandpa said to Xia Ying meaningfully. "Real poisonous insects are very scary and disgusting. Some settings have been changed for the sake of fiction. Please don't take it seriously." End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 382. Chapter 382 This girl is so fierce. After Xia Ying heard what her grandfather said, she silently lowered her head and glanced at the group of small bugs still clinging to her ankles. When the little bugs saw Xia Ying looking down at them, they all blinked in a cute manner. 18 green eyes blinked, and Xia Ying looked lifeless. It would be fine if she looked cute, but Xia Ying felt creepy when she thought that these insects that had just crawled out of the 18th floor of were going to live with her. Grandpa, really, is there no other way? Xia Ying confirmed again. The old man frowned, as if he didn't understand Xia Ying's thoughts. Child, these are not goo worms that everyone can have. There are 9 of them in total, each with different abilities. With this group of little goo worms will only be beneficial to you in the future. Xia Ying listened to her grandfather's words for a long time, and finally had to bite the bullet and accept the strange group of bugs. Grandpa gave Xia Ying a bracelet. There were 9 small bell-like things in total, each of which could hold a small insect. Xia Ying knelt down and said to the bugs still clinging to her ankles, come on, we're all going home. Xia Ying shook her bracelet at them, and the bugs blinked in unison. Xia Ying shook her bracelet at them, which meant that Xia Ying had accepted them. The little bugs immediately flapped their tiny wings and flew into the small bells on the bracelet one by one. Under normal circumstances, the bell will not ring. The bell on the bracelet will only ring when the bugs sense that you are in danger. Each bug has a different ability, but what kind of ability it is depends on you. To find out, because even I don't know about it so far. Each goo worm eats different things, but if they are hungry, they will go out to find food on their own, and you don't have to worry about them. Child, since you are a destined person, I hope to use Guchong to do more good things and help more people in need. On the way to the comic shop, Xia Ying's grandfather's words kept echoing in her mind. She entered a wonderful store out of curiosity, and when she came out, she had an inexplicable bracelet and 9 weird bugs on her hand. Xia Ying was still confused at the moment and could not figure out what happened. Until, the bell on the bracelet on Xia Ying's hand suddenly rang. Xia Ying suddenly woke up from her thoughts. The bell rang, which meant she was going to be in trouble. Xia Ying looked around alertly, and suddenly a car suddenly stopped beside her. Immediately afterwards, the car door was opened, and 3 strong men got out of the car and prepared to force Xia Ying into the car. Xia Ying struggled desperately and shouted for help. However, within a few seconds, a small insect flew out of the bell and landed on top of Xia Ying's head. Then the next second, Xia Ying suddenly trembled, as if she was possessed, and her expression changed suddenly. A strong man was about to close the car door when he was suddenly kicked out of the car by a shadowless leg. He fell to the ground with a thud and came into close contact with the ground. Before the other 2 people could realize what happened, they were kicked out immediately. Xia Ying walked out of the car with a cold look on her face and walked towards the 3 people step by step. The 3 people were immediately frightened when they met Xia Ying's sinister eyes. Oh my God, why is this girl so fierce? I heard that you want to conquer Lingfeng? Then tomorrow I will take my son out for a walk, and by the way, sprinkle some candy? Chu Shenxiu, protest. Yu Lingfeng raised his hand indifferently, closed the door, and put 11 Ju. Chu Shenxiu hurriedly hid behind Chu Shengming. Chu Shengming said that he and Yu Lingfeng were in the same team. Chu Shenxiu. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 383. Chapter 383, She will never be able to stand up again. Say, who sent you here? Xia Ying asked sharply. After half a minute, no one answered. Xia Ying snorted coldly, you didn't taste enough just now. Do you want to do it again? The 3 people looked at each other in disbelief, all crying and speechless. They all received hush money. Even if you die, you can't let it slip. Xia Ying took a deep breath, and suddenly thought of something, then raised her lips and smiled, staring at the green lighted insects in her hand that were blinking at Xia Ying, looking like little bugs ready for action at any time. Hey, Little bugs, do you know how to scratch your itch? Xia Ying asked with a smirk. As soon as Xia Ying finished speaking, the little bugs flew out of the bell one by one, as if they had received military orders. He got into the clothes of those people, and immediately, those people made hilarious sounds. It didn't take long for them to laugh and burst into tears. Don't, ha ha ha, and please, ah ha ha ha. Ha ha ha, I said. Xia Ying couldn't help but reveal a faint smile when she looked at the group of strong men who were jumping around in place because of the unbearable itch, desperate for life and death. Death is nothing to be afraid of, but most people really can't stand the strange feeling of itching. It would have been over if I had just said no. Xia Ying shook the bracelet, and the bugs flew towards the bracelet in neat lines, and then went home one by one in an orderly manner. It was Chiao Na ordered it. One of the leading strong men said, "We took her money, so we have to help her. What does she want to do with me?" Xia Ying's eyes darkened when she heard Chiao Na's name. It turned out that this woman had not repented yet and was actually trying every possible means to seek death. Because of Xia Ying's last incident, Chiao Na's reputation fell into the abyss. Originally, she was the most promising female artist, but because of Xia Ying, she was cast aside by the entire internet. She had to go to a remote mountainous area to feed mosquitoes every day just to gain some netizen popularity. How could a person like Chiao Na, who had been pampered since childhood, endure such torture? She was now on the verge of collapse. The more she collapsed, the more Chiao Na hated Xia Ying and the thorn bird. She is still looking for the thorn bird, but Xia Ying must make her pay for it. She wants us to interrogate you, and then take a video and post it online to ruin your reputation. When Xia Ying heard this, she clenched her hands into fists and her joints made a clanking sound. This woman is really vicious to the core. Go back and tell Chiao Na not to go to the mountains to do charity shows recently. It's useless. In a few days, she will be lying in the gutter forever, unable to turn over. Xia Ying turned around and left after speaking. A woman like Joanna doesn't deserve any chance to repent. She should be locked up in a dark prison and die alone. Xia Ying called 11 Ju, who was currently in the Xia family's study, indulging in a sea of books. Zihu just now discovered that is much more interesting than reading comics. 11 Ju especially likes criminal investigation and suspense novels, they are so exciting. Since reading the book and giving up the comics, Zihu no longer has headaches or backaches, and can climb Mount Everest in one breath. Zihu, help me find all the dirty information on Chiao Na. Zihu on the other end of the phone was stunned. Why do you want to do this suddenly? Because I want her to never get over. Recommended votes. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 384. Chapter 384. Give you a name. Okay, give me 2 days. 11 Ju readily agreed. Xia Ying hung up the phone and adjusted her mood. At this time, the little bug attached to Xia Ying's head flew down and was ready to go home. Etc. Xia Ying stopped it in surprise. The little goo insect flapped its little wings and looked back at Xia Ying, looking obediently, waiting for Xia Ying's next words. I suddenly became so powerful just now. Is it because of you? Xia Ying was still very excited when she thought about the battle just now. She actually kicked away a big man who weighed nearly 200 kilograms. To be honest, it still feels incredible when I think about it now. Little Gu Chong blinked and answered Xia Ying. Wow, you are really amazing. Xia Ying admired. At first she thought these little bugs were scary and annoying, but now it seems that the old man was right, she had found a treasure. The little goo insect blinked again. Then let me give you a name, okay? Little Gu Chong blinked his eyes quickly and stared at Xia Ying excitedly. At this time, seeing this, the other little goo insects poked their little heads out of the bell and stared at Xia Ying motionlessly. Um. Xia Ying thought for a long time, and suddenly an idea came to her. Yes, your name is Xiao Yi. Xia Ying pointed at the little goo insect with overwhelming fighting power and said. Then, he began to name the other little goo insects in a clockwise direction. Your name is Xiao Er, your name is Xiao San, your name is Xiao Ju. That's it, simple, convenient and easy to remember, although, Xia Ying may not remember what they are called after a while. After all, they look exactly the same. The little goo insect with a name happily flew out of the house, and then flew around Xia Ying, arranging various beautiful shapes. Xia Ying was amused by them, but when Xia Ying realized the patterns these little goo insects were making, her smile gradually dimmed and was replaced by a look of dumbfounded expression on her face. The patterns put up by the little goo insects are as follows. Iloveu. Xia Ying is ashamed, can she be so good at flirting with a goo insect these days? Moreover, although they are small in size, they are still quite smart. Xia Ying came to Annie's comic shop and sat in her own private box as usual. Su Annie brought Xia Ying the new comic issue she had been following, and brought a pot of scented tea to Xia Ying. Xia Ying likes to sip scented tea while reading comics. In Xia Ying's world, comics paired with scented tea is a beautiful thing in life. Thank you, Sister N. Xia Ying said with a smile. Su Annie looked at Xia Ying with a smile and said, Xia Ying, you must be very busy recently. You haven't come to our comic shop for a long time. Xia Ying participated in the San Diego music competition some time ago, won the world gold medal, and became a close disciple of Modzai. Moreover, the song Rebirth became popular in the global music industry, and he instantly became a music celebrity on par with the little music prince Stefan. During that time, the mainstream media were reporting on Xia Ying, which was simply not a good thing. So, Su Annie felt that Xia Ying had not been to the comic shop for so long. Yes, Sister N, the study load is heavy now, and I have to practice musical instruments every day, so I can only secretly find time to come over and read comics. Xia Ying replied. By the way, why didn't your very handsome boyfriend come with you today? Su Annie suddenly raised the corner of her mouth and showed a bad smile, staring at Xia Ying and asked. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 385. Chapter 385 The Mysterious Woman in Red. Xia Ying's face heated up. After reacting for half a second, she quickly waved her hands and retorted, No, no, Sister Annie, Yu Lingfeng is my friend and my tutor. He is not my boyfriend, so don't think nonsense. Xia Ying lowered her voice a little guiltily at the end of her words. Su-an and Luo Xian are also good friends, and Luo Xian will come to this comic shop when she has nothing to do. Sometimes while chatting with Su Annie, we would talk about Xia Ying. So if Su Annie thought that Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng were a couple, then Luo Xian would soon think so too. Luo Xian usually likes to make jokes about Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng. If she knows something, then Xia Ying will be even more. Huh? Don't you even plan to catch such a handsome boy? Su Annie was a little surprised. From her last observation, Yu Lingfeng was obviously interested in Xia Ying. No matter how many pairs of eyes around him stared at him eagerly, there was only one Xia Ying in his eyes. Xia Ying was stunned and didn't know how to answer Su Annie's words. Hey, of course, I'm not encouraging you to fall in love prematurely, you still need to study now. Su An suddenly felt like she was encouraging children to do bad things, and she quickly changed her tone. Xia Ying simply walked down the steps and nodded. Just as Su Annie turned around, she suddenly saw a dark figure standing at the door of the box. The man's face was thin, and his pair of dark and deep eyes were like a bottomless pool, firmly attracting the attention of others. The bridge of the nose is smooth and high, the lips are slightly pursed, and the face is so indifferent that it seems to have no expression, but it also gives people a sense of fear and fear. Su Annie's eyes lit up and she opened her mouth twice before calling out the man's name, you Lingfeng. Xia Ying stiffened suddenly when she heard the name, then turned her head and met Yu Lingfeng's eyes. Xia Ying frowned in confusion, the surprise on her face was no different from Su Annie's. Yu Lingfeng, why are you here? Yu Lingfeng opened her long legs and walked towards Xia Ying. Su Annie walked out of the door in a very cognizant manner, closing the door behind her. She raised the corners of her mouth, looked at Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng inside, and smiled lightly. Yu Lingfeng sat down opposite Xia Ying, then stretched out her long hand, took the half-drunk cup of scented tea in front of Xia Ying and drank it all. The warm and sweet taste made Yu Lingfeng frown in discomfort, but he managed to swallow it in the end. I heard you calling my name, I thought you. Yu Lingfeng was talking, when his eyes suddenly fell on the bell bracelet on Xia Ying's right wrist. He paused and frowned. What do you think is wrong with me? I thought something happened to you, Yu Lingfeng continued. At that time, Yu Lingfeng and Rong Si were surveying something in an old house. According to local villagers who witnessed it, a very strange woman in red came to stay for 2 days recently, but Yu Lingfeng and Rong Si, when we rushed over, the old house was already empty. Rong Si said that the woman in red is the witch. She likes red because it is the color of blood, and blood makes her feel very exciting and excited. At this moment, Yu Lingfeng frowned, and suddenly felt Xia Ying calling his name, so while Rong Si was still explaining the witch to Yu Lingfeng in a serious manner, Yu Lingfeng had disappeared as soon as he turned around. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 386. Chapter 386, Kill These Goo Insects. Xia Ying was stunned. When did she call Yu Lingfeng's name? Then I suddenly thought, oh, when I was talking to sister and just now. But, is Yu Lingfeng so sensitive? You can call me by a casual name. What are you thinking about? Yu Lingfeng asked after seeing Xia Ying's dull expression for a long time without saying a word. Nothing. So, what were you doing just now? Yu Lingfeng asked, looking down and scanning the pile of comics next to Xia Ying. Someone who didn't see some strange scene felt satisfied. I was chatting with Sister N, and I just mentioned you by the way. Xia Ying said honestly. Yu Lingfeng's eyes focused on the bracelets on Xia Ying's hands. He squinted and stared at the small bells with a pair of sinister eyes. Those little goo insects were hiding in the dark, probably noticing something was wrong. One of the brave ones quietly opened his eyes, and his dark green eyes happened to meet Yu Lingfeng's cold gaze, and then the little goo insects turned around. He froze and immediately closed his eyes again. Xia Ying noticed Yu Lingfeng's gaze and asked, Yu Lingfeng, are you looking at this? Xia Ying raised her hand, and Yu Lingfeng's gaze rose accordingly. Where does this come from? Yu Lingfeng asked. On my way to the comic shop, I ran into a very strange shop, and an old man gave it to me. He said that this kind of goo insect is very rare, and once the owner is identified, he will always be loyal to him. He also said that the goo insect will always be loyal to him. It helps me do a lot of things, so I'll take them. Xia Ying explained. You call them out and I'll take a look. Xia Ying noticed that Yu Lingfeng's face was livid and not very pretty. Come out, little ones. Xia Ying shouted at the bracelet. However, after half a minute, there was no movement. Xia Ying shouted again, but the result was still the same. Xia Ying raised her eyes, looked at Yu Lingfeng's face as icy as a cold pool, and understood immediately. Yu Lingfeng, you stare at them with a fierce look, they don't dare to come out. Yu Lingfeng frowned slightly, fierce. How could he? But Yu Lingfeng softened his expression in the next second, and Xia Ying tried again before calling out the little goo insects. The little bugs were lying on Xia Ying's wrist, motionless, waiting for Xia Ying's instructions. Yu Lingfeng stretched out his hand and said to Xia Ying, "Let them come into my hands." Xia Ying was puzzled. "Yu Lingfeng, what do you want to do?" "Call them over." Yu Lingfeng didn't answer, just repeated his own words. "Past." Xia Ying said to them. The little goo insects flew into Yu Lingfeng's palm unwillingly. At this time, Yu Lingfeng suddenly clenched his fists, his face suddenly changed, and a cold chill flashed in his eyes. Yu Lingfeng stood up suddenly and was about to leave. Xia Ying quickly grabbed Yu Lingfeng's arm and asked him puzzledly, "Yu Lingfeng, what on earth are you going to do?" Yu Lingfeng lowered his eyes, looked at Xia Ying, said with a cold face, "Kill these goo insects." Xia Ying opened her eyes in surprise. "Why did you kill them?" Yu Lingfeng explained solemnly, "You know they are poisonous insects, but do you know where they come from? They are the king of poisonous insects. Only wizards use poisonous insects to kill people." Xia Ying was stunned when she heard Yu Lingfeng's words. She didn't know what to say in response. Thanks to the little cutie's dream Lexi and for the reward. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 387. Chapter 387. The witch shop is missing. Yu Lingfeng, they didn't kill anyone, and they just helped me. Xia Ying defended. Yu Lingfeng did not accept Xia Ying's argument. The more powerful the goo insect, the more evil methods are needed to refine it. "You said you want to raise them, but do you know what they eat?" Yu Lingfeng said this and Xia Ying panicked. According to the old man's words, each goo insect has different abilities and eats different things, and Xia Ying does not need to worry about their food, they will find their own food. "No, don't know. You raise them without knowing it. Do you know how dangerous this is?" Yu Lingfeng continued, "I once met a wizard who specialized in raising voodoo insects. He had countless strange voodoo insects in his hands, but do you know how he died?" Xia Ying moved her lips but did not answer. In the end, in order to raise a so-called most powerful voodoo, he was eaten by the voodoo as food. Xia Ying slowly loosened her grip on Yu Lingfeng's hand, then drooped her face and said in a low voice, "Okay, I was wrong, I really don't know." When Yu Lingfeng saw Xia Ying's appearance, her stern expression immediately softened. Yu Lingfeng stretched out his hand, touched Xia Ying's head, and said softly, "I will help you deal with them." After Yu Lingfeng finished speaking, he suddenly felt the hand holding his fist move, and a small goo insect took advantage of Yu Lingfeng's distraction to escape. Then it flew into the cup where Yu Lingfeng had just finished drinking the scented tea. Yu Lingfeng turned around and looked at the escaped little goo insect with a cold face, preparing to catch it. However, Yu Lingfeng had just taken a few steps when Xia Ying, who was behind her, suddenly grabbed Yu Lingfeng's arm and shook Yu Lingfeng's arm excitedly. She was as happy as a child and said to Yu Lingfeng, "Yu Lingfeng, Yu Lingfeng, look, that little goo insect is drinking scented tea." The remaining 2 drops of scented tea at the bottom of the cup were all sucked into the stomach by the little bug. After finishing the drink, the little goo insect lay down at the bottom of the cup and rested, looking satisfied that he had eaten and drank enough. Yu Lingfeng frowned. This was the first time he saw a goo insect drinking scented tea. "Yu Lingfeng, does this mean that there are good and bad bugs?" Xia Ying seemed to have found a new breakthrough and said to Yu Lingfeng, "Maybe most of the goo bugs are bad, but what if they are the rare ones?" Xia Ying continued, "I remember my grandpa said to me, asking me to use these goo bugs to do good deeds. Does this mean that these little bugs are not bad?" Yu Lingfeng did not answer, but just said, "Take me to see that store." "Good." Xia Ying took Yu Lingfeng back the same way, but Xia Ying suddenly discovered that the store was missing. Moreover, not only has it disappeared, it seems to have left no trace of its existence. And the original store was actually just an empty alley. Xia Ying stood there, looking at the alley in stunned silence. Yu Lingfeng looked around, and finally saw a street camera. Yu Lingfeng took out his mobile phone and called Officer Song. Song Yang, Anhezailu, 5th Street, next to Zhenmei's barber shop, call up the camera from 5:30 to 6 p.m. and send it to me. Yu Lingfeng said. Xia Ying heard Yu Lingfeng's words and looked back at him. Officer Song on the other end of the phone said angrily, "Brother Yu, why are you asking me for this camera and that camera every day if you refuse to work with me to solve the case?" Yu Lingfeng hung up the phone before he could finish speaking. Police Officer Song. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 388. Chapter 388 Being Poisoned. Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng returned to the Xia family. Before Chu Shenxiu could enthusiastically report his feelings of missing Xia Ying, Yu Lingfeng and Xia Ying ran away in a hurry as if they were rushing to reincarnate. Xia Ying's room. Xia Ying's room. How could Yu Lingfeng run to a place that was inaccessible, several times, in Chu Shenxiu's eyes? Why did Yu Lingfeng run to it so naturally? Furthermore, Chu Shenxiu discovered in despair that these two people had locked the door. Chu Shenxiu came to the living room angrily and sat on the sofa angrily. At this time, 11 Ju happened to pass by and saw Chu Shenxiu with a sad and sorrowful face, and asked in confusion, "What are you doing?" Hearing 11 Ju's voice, Chu Shenxiu looked over and said angrily, "Huh, Yu Lingfeng is such a scheming boy. He must have left you here on purpose, so that he could take the opportunity to come over to my cousin Xiaoying every day." What did this baby do? When did the master notify him in advance every time he came to Xia's house? If Chu Shenxiu hadn't said that, he wouldn't even know that the master has arrived, right? You said that for a person of your age, wouldn't you feel embarrassed living in other people's homes every day? Chu Shenming on the side gave Chu Shenxiu a meaningful look. "What about yourself?" 11 Ju argued aggrievedly, "I told you, I'm still a baby. He is only 10 months old." "Humph, don't you have any idea how long your robot will last?" Upon hearing this, Zihu immediately ran away. This Chu Shenxiu is really terrifying. He is planning to kill him anytime and anywhere. No, he had to complain to his master and Sakura. At this time, Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng were looking at the camera files sent by Officer Song in front of the computer. Yu Lingfeng kept fast forwarding and finally waited until Xia Ying appeared. Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng held their breath and stared at the computer screen. Xia Ying suddenly opened her eyes in horror, because she saw herself walking into the alley in the camera. Moreover, the expression and movements of shaking his legs desperately later were exactly the same. After a while, the strangely dressed old man appeared. Yu Lingfeng immediately became wary and stared at the old man. The old man said something to Xia Ying, then gave Xia Ying a bracelet, and Xia Ying came out of the alley. Xia Ying was terrified. What was even more strange was that when Xia Ying was screaming in the alley and shaking her legs in an attempt to get rid of the bug, there were many passers-by outside, but no one glanced at Xia Ying sideways. It's as if she is isolated or transparent. "Yu Lingfeng, what on earth is going on?" Xia Ying was stunned. Yu Lingfeng thought for a while and said firmly, "That person has bewitched you and caused you to hallucinate. The people passing by are probably also bewitched by him, so they are not aware of your existence." "Poison," Xia Ying frowned. But from beginning to end, not only Xia Ying herself, but also the camera did not capture any strange phenomena. How did that old man get the poison? Yes, a really powerful wizard. He can always cast poison without anyone noticing. I don't know why he sent you such a poison. Does he want to help you or harm you?" Yu Lingfeng said in a deep voice, and then his eyes fell on the goo insect bracelet on Xia Ying's hand. Until I figure out the origin of this group of goo insects, I absolutely cannot let such dangerous things stay with you. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 389. Chapter 389 almost lost his appearance. Yu Lingfeng's face was full of determination and there was no room for comment. Xia Ying bit her lower lip and suddenly asked in a low voice, "Then, do you want to live in my house too?" Yu Lingfeng met Xia Ying's eyes and nodded. Xia Ying subconsciously curved her lips into a sweet smile, but immediately thought that Yu Lingfeng was still looking at her, so her smile instantly dimmed, pretending to be calm and composed. Just the little moves that Xia Ying made just now were completely caught by Yu Lingfeng. Yu Lingfeng raised her lips slightly, with a faint smile on her lips, looking at you, "Do you really want me to live in your house?" Xia Ying was stunned for a moment, then waved her hands quickly after reacting for a few seconds, "No, no, no, I didn't." Yu Lingfeng lowered his eyes and smiled lightly, but said nothing. Just the smile in his eyes expressed everything he wanted to say in his heart. Xia Ying opened the door, and suddenly a tall figure rushed towards Xia Ying because she was unsteady on her feet. Yu Lingfeng had quick eyes and quick hands. When he saw this, he immediately reached out to grab Xia Ying and pulled her into his arms. And Chu Shenxiu fell straight to the ground. Hearing the sound, he fell hard. 11 Ju and Chu Shengming rushed over after hearing the sound, and then they saw Chu Shenxiu who fell to the ground with a bruised nose and face, and Xia Ying who looked like a little bird in Yu Lingfeng's arms. Yu Lingfeng's palm rested naturally on Xia Ying's waist to steady Xia Ying's steps. Xia Ying saw the strange looks in Chu Shengming and 11 Ju's eyes and realized something was wrong. Then she took a step to the side and left Yu Lingfeng's arms. Ahem, what happened? Chu Shengming covered his mouth with his fist and coughed twice, trying to break the awkward and ambiguous atmosphere just now. Brother, I'm injured. Chu Shenxiu, who was lying on the ground, made a plaintive voice. Chu Shengming looked at him sympathetically and stretched out his hand towards him. Chu Shenxiu stood up slowly, looked at Yu Lingfeng angrily, and said, "Are you so cruel? Since your hands and feet are so fast, you actually watched me fall." Yu Lingfeng remained calm and said lightly, "This is your punishment." Xia Ying helped from the side and said, "Yes, big turtle dove, who asked you to eavesdrop on the two of us?" Chu Shenxiu stammered and didn't know how to respond. After feeling guilty for a few seconds, he suddenly became confident again, "Then I'm not thinking about my cousin Xiao Ying. A man and a woman are alone in the same room. I'm the one who acts as a showman. Isn't it normal for me to worry?" Xia Ying gave Chu Shenxiu a gorgeous eye roll. "Can your mental activities not be so complicated?" Chu Shenxiu saw that Xia Ying had already started to switch sides, and actually started to help Yu Lingfeng, but she didn't even help him anymore. Chu Shenxiu touched his injured nose in pain and said, "Hiss, it hurts, but my heart hurts even more." Chu Shengming couldn't stand Chu Shenxiu's dramatic behavior, so he said, "Okay, let auntie give you some medicine." Chu Shenxiu shook his head, "No, I'm hurt in my heart. I want cousin Xiao Ying to give me medicine." Xia Ying was helpless. How could she fall in love with such a shameless cousin? However, Xia Ying saw that Chu Shenxiu was seriously injured. There was a bruise on his forehead and his nose was swollen, he was almost disfigured. "Oh well." Xia Ying's heart softened, she curled her lips and agreed. Thanks to the little cutie for the reward. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 390. Chapter 390. Are you a fly? Xia Ying took out the small medicine box at home, and then carefully disinfected and applied medicine to Chu Shenxiu in the living room. Although Chu Sensio was in pain, he felt as happy as if he was rolling in soft clouds throughout the whole process. Especially when Xia Ying's warm fingertips touched him, Chu Sensio felt that the air was sweet. Ha, cousin Sakura still likes him after all. Yu Lingfeng on the side had a dark face. Although he clearly knew that Chu Sensio was Xia Ying's cousin, he was just a medicine. Did this guy look like he was in a state of ecstasy? Chu Shenming covered his eyes not to look, feeling that Chu Sensio was too irritating and embarrassing. Ziyu has been attracted by the books in Xia Ying's study room. He holds a book and reads it every day. Yu Lingfeng glanced at the cover of the book The Three Musketeers that 11 Ju was reading. Well, 11 Ju seemed to be showing signs of change recently. Hey, can the big turtle dove's expression be normal? Xia Ying couldn't stand it anymore. This expression was really too flattering. With such a handsome face, he just gave him the feeling of a wretched Japanese uncle. Cousin Sakura, I am so happy. Xia Ying ignored him and packed the small medicine box. You should pay more attention to yourself recently to avoid getting infected. Okay, okay. Chu Sensio nodded quickly. At dinner time, Chu Sensio saw that Yu Lingfeng was still there, so he suddenly became wary again. Chu Sensio took advantage of Xia Ying's indoctrination into 11 Ju with the idea of how to be a tough guy, approached Yu Lingfeng, and asked angrily, Hey, why are you still here? Yu Lingfeng ignored him. Chu Sensio continued to harass, are you planning something? Also, what were you talking about in the room with cousin Xiao Ying just now? Yu Lingfeng raised his eyes and glanced at Chu Sensio, are you a fly? Chu Sensio was stunned. Yu Lingfeng's answer had nothing to do with his question, okay. What the hell, of course not. Then you're still buzzing. Yu Lingfeng twitched the corner of his mouth. Xia Ying is really patient. A person like Chu Sensio can be patient. Yu Lingfeng was thinking, what if 11 Ju and Chu Sensio were in contact for a long time and got infected? Then you can probably go see Dong Ju and the others. Chu Sensio then realized that Yu Lingfeng disliked him for being noisy and compared him to a fly. Hey, do you know that if you want to pursue my cousin Xiao Ying, you have to pass my test? Chu Sensio snorted, if you offend me, there will be no good end. Have no idea. Before Chu Sensio could finish the last half of his sentence, Yu Lingfeng interrupted him mercilessly. You have a really bad temper. Do you believe that I brought cousin Sakura and Tsundere together? Chu Sensio crossed his arms and threatened. In fact, Chu Sensio had already thought about it. If Xia Ying must get married in the future, Yu Lingfeng would be ranked first on his candidate list. Yu Lingfeng's only points deduction is that his family background is unclear, and his attitude towards everyone except Xia Ying is too bad. Especially to him. Yu Lingfeng raised his eyebrows when he heard this, and his eyes fell coldly on Chu Sensio's face. Chu Sensio got goosebumps unconsciously when Yu Lingfeng looked at him like this. You can try. If you are not afraid of death. Chu Sensio swallowed hard. Yu Lingfeng's eyes were really scary. Compared with him, his Chu's eyes seemed to have no effect. Thanks to the little cutie Tian Longtong for the reward. In PK, if you want to be put on the shelves later, please remember to vote for recommendations and leave messages. Good night. End of this chapter.